Hi, welcome back to Wallflowers. So today we're making bread, but bread to can in jars for the pantry shelf. So we're struggling at the moment to get bread. Some days we can get it, some days we can't. If you're anything like me, we like a bit of bread with a meal or toast in the morning, etc. So the jars we need to use for canning the bread is what we call a wide mouth jar. So that's what this is. It may be a small jar, but it's a wide mouth jar. So it's not as narrow as some of the other jars. But also it's a straight jar. So whereas this jar, if I could open it, I don't really need to open it, is, I don't know if you can see that, but it's got like a shoulder on it. Now, if you were trying, it's all right if you're pouring liquid out or something like that, but if you were trying to get bread out of it or something that's a firm product, you're going to have to chisel away at it and you're going to break the bread down. So you don't want anything that's got like shoulders on the jar. You actually need something more straight, which is this kind of jar. And then when you're taking it out, you can run the knife all the way around the outside and pass it out. So we need a wide mouth jar with straight edges. And unfortunately, I've got four of those, so that's what I'm going to use today. So you've just caught me melting the butter. Now, this butter I made myself from some cream I was able to get from the Food Initiative a good 6 months or so ago. And along with that, it's got wild garlic ramps in. So it's a garlic butter. So I've just not long taken that out the freezer and I'm melting it. I don't have any garlic salt, so I thought, well, I'll just use the garlic butter I made out the freezer and that'll be sufficient. So the butter's fully melted. I've put my yeast in a bowl and I'm just about to add the warm water. I'm going to give that a stir. I'm just going to pop the lid over it. So I'll just keep the heat in and the yeast can take. So that's the yeast sorted, the butter melted, and next I'm going to start with the flour. So I'm going to place the flour in the bowl. So if I can just grab my recipe, I'll tell you how much flour. So I've got 350 grams of the all-purpose flour. And I'm going to put a teaspoon of salt in. I always use the pink Himalayan. I'm going to put a teaspoon of the salt in. I've already measured the herbs out, so if you just pan across these herbs, Mr. Wallflower, so we've got some thyme, some sage, some oregano, and some marjoram. Americans call the oregano. Exactly the same thing, just a different pronunciation. So I've already measured them out. So what I've got is half a teaspoon of the thyme, half a teaspoon of the oregano, 3/4 of a teaspoon of sage, 3/4 teaspoon of marjoram, and I'm also going to put 45 grams of butter in. Well, that'll be inclusive in the garlic, so I won't have to add any further butter. I've got it all there in the garlic butter. So in with the herbs. In with the butter. Again, my pet haters leaving anything in the pan, so bear with me while I obsessively scrape every last bit out. Waste not, want not. I think we're all the way there now. I'm telling you, if I was on my own, I'd take much longer than that, making sure I got every last scraping out. So that's the garlic in. Bring down the top. Oh yeah. I'll just wait for that yeast to give it the time. And then I'll come back and continue the rest. So I've left the yeast for 10 minutes. I'm going to now pour that in. And I'm now going to mix the whole thing together on a low speed for 15 minutes. Apparently, if you give it a good 10-15 minutes, the bread is much softer. And seeing as we want to can it, I think that's the best thing to do. So just going to have it on a low speed. I'll come back and show you. Okay, so I put all the ingredients together. I whisked it or blended it for 15 minutes. I've left this to rise for just over an hour. And now I'm going to knead it. It's sticky. Yeah, that was the wall pass. Thank you very much. I'm just going to get the last bit out of there. You know, I don't want to waste any. Doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to make a mess, but it'll be worth it. I'm going to dip my hands for a minute. I'm just getting rid of the bulk of the stickiness off my hands so I can continue. I'm hoping the sound is okay today. I am struggling with this microphone. And I'm looking to see if one of my gifts for Christmas may possibly be a microphone. So I'm hoping today's volume is good. I will to try to speak up and clearly so you can understand what I'm saying. I'm just scraping the remainder out of the bowl now with a spatula. So place it all together. It's nice and therapeutic, this, actually, being able to push it and give it a little bit of pressure. Just want to try and knock some of that air back out of it and get it nice and smooth. Just capturing little bits of flour when I'm reaching back to the sticky parts of it. So this is meant to continue for 5 minutes. Are you keeping an eye on time for me, Mr. Wallflower? So it's not always the best thing to do when you're in an awkward position with spinal difficulties, but we plod on and we do what we can. To have this bread canned will be a blessing, so we need to get it done. Yeah, as Mr. Wallflowers is just saying behind me, I'm not sure if you can hear him or not. The jars are preheating in the oven, so they'll be ready. Some people actually grease the jars when they're preparing to can bread, but as there's ample butter in the recipe, I'm not actually going to grease the jars. I think it should be quite fine without, so that's a personal choice. You can either use extra to grease the jars or not. Looks like I'm adding an awful lot of flour, but I'm only sprinkling out a little bit on the side. I'm actually out of breath doing this now. I think it's quite sufficient, isn't it? So I'm going to put it in a sausage shape. I'm just going to cut it with the end of the spoon. So I'm going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to cut it in half again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So just going to bring the jars out the oven. Roll this a little bit into a ball. Come on, Mary. Try not to burn myself in the process. I'll pop it down into the jar. I might be better doing it in more of a sausage shape. so it drops to the bottom. And there we have it. So I'm going to leave that here for another hour. I've got the oven on for another reason. I'm going to leave them on the side with the tea towel over. I'm going to leave them to rise for an hour. Once they've risen for an hour, then we shall pop them in the oven and start the baking process. Okay, so these have risen again for another hour. Wow, look at the rise on them. That's quite nice. I've just had a little feel of this one. So I'm just going to knock the tops off. Scoop a little bit out of each one. I know, but I don't want it to rise too much. Oh, right, okay. Okay, so there's the 4 jars. I'm going to take a little bit off that one. I'll get into that one. So there's the 4 jars ready. Now I'm going to place them in the oven to bake for 15 to 20 minutes. Oh, carefully. I'll check on them. You see them, Mr. Wolfhouse? I'll check on them in 15 minutes. And hopefully we've got baked bread in jars. Now what I have here, I'm also going to do the same. Just going to bring it back to a little ball. I'm just going to bake an extra. I think I might actually, I don't have a lid to fit this jar. I think I'm actually just going to do the same and get myself. We'll eat that tomorrow for an evening meal. We did some, they didn't rise as much, but we've eaten these for the evening meal today. Some of them were made in the jar. And this is the leftovers of the bread that we had for the evening meal. And it was really, excuse me, talking with the food in my mouth. Doesn't look much. But we had soup for the evening meal. Lentil and bacon soup. And this was just nice as an accompaniment with it. So we used 2 of these. It was herb and garlic bread. And we've got this one left. That will be used for the evening meal tomorrow. And throughout the rest of the evening. Even though I've had my evening meal, I didn't eat this. So I'll eat this throughout the evening as a nibble. Okay, I'll come back. I'll put this one in with those. And I'll come back when that's baked. We'll check it in 15 minutes. Okay, so here they are out of the oven. And I'm just hoping that they come out okay. So I'm going to run the knife all the way around the outside of the jar, and this is why I kept it reiterating at the beginning of the video why it needs to be a wide mouth jar. Now don't be laughing at me while I struggle to get it out the jar. So there we go. Crispy on top and moist at the bottom. So that's number one. Let's get this big one with the topper on. That bit out my way first. Two. Yeah, I'm just showing what they look like. So I'm going to cut. Let's get the bread knife, Marianne. I'm going to cut a slice off. It's nice and moist on the inside. See if we can have a little butter. Lovely. Even better when it's warm. Really nice. So that's how we do it. So what I'll do next is I'm going to pop the bread back in the jars. I'm going to place the lids on. None of this bread will get wasted. Whatever toppings come off here now, I can either grind into breadcrumbs and use it for a meal tomorrow. Or just keep in the bread bag and just use for little bits as we go along. Still hot, that jar. So one I haven't got a lid for, and those four will go back in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. I'll bring them back out, sit them on the side, and they shall be vacuum sealed. We'll hear the top sinking, we'll hear it ping, and everything will be good. And that's literally how you can bread. You can do it in much bigger jars, but they must be the wide mouth jar. This bread is made with plain flour, so Americans would call that all-purpose flour. And it's delicious as long as you put the yeast in and all your bits in. Plain flour is sufficient to make bread with. And you can it, and it can safely sit on the pantry shelf. So that's a blessing. It may only be little bits if I can get bigger jars, bigger wide mouth jars, which I'm looking for. one lady introduced a company. What was the company called? Hobbycraft, that are selling jars, and I'll be looking on there for the most reasonably priced wide mouth jars. And I hope to do much bigger jars and put some substantial bit of bread away for when we need it. Okay, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you soon. Bye.